In this section, we will be working on the page I call Beautiful Blooms. It uses this purple paper for the background. It's called Sun-Kissed. We need 2 sheets of that in the 12 by 12 size. And then this page also has a die cut panel, and I'm using the Basic Lattice, Spellbinders Basic Lattice. I cut this out of cream colored cardstock, and so that's the die cut portion of the second panel. The frame around that die cut is going to be Coming Up Roses. 2 sheets of that from the 8-inch pad will be used. And then for the front panel, I'm using 2 sheets of Beautiful Blooms. Now there is a sheet, of course, that is already 12 inches in the paper, in the 12 by 12 paper collection, but I think the scale of this is too large for everything else that's going on in the book. So I'm going to make the 2 8 by 8 pieces work. I may end up needing to put some support behind it, a piece of cream cardstock. We'll see as we get those cut and it worked out. It'll have basically a frame, and then some of the interior flowers that we cut out to make the frame will be used to accent the edges, and then also from the scraps of things we've already cut out, we can get some extra flowers to accent it here and there. So those are the pages that we need for this page called Beautiful Blooms, and I'll be back once I get things cut out to work on the assembly with you. So I've finished my cutting, and we're here to put the panels together. So starting with the back panel, getting these lined up, and just like we have been doing. Let me just double check to make sure I have both of these going the way I want them. Yes, because these have a direction, and they were cut so that the center part would come together nicely. Now we'll join this side. Give that a burnish. There's our background, and we'll set that aside. Now on to our die cut panel. Now before we attach our frames, when I was looking at this kind of layering it as a test, this background looked kind of plain to me. And so I'm going to add some different elements that I've cut out before to the trellis before I add this frame on. So let me put these aside for a second. Now down in this corner, I just want to have a couple of roses that come kind of diagonally into that corner. And these are just cut from some of the scraps. And let me put a piece of patty paper behind here to protect, because I think what I'll do is just put glue on these, and then the patty paper can protect it if it goes through. So I encourage you to kind of look through what you've got. I've done some cutting of scraps, any flower that looked big enough to save and could be easily cut I kind of have cut a group of them out so that after I finish with the main construction of the panels, I can go back and do some little finishing touches as I want to. So there in this corner are a couple of roses. And that's still a little sticky, so I'm going to put a clean piece behind there. And then working over on this side, I'm going to have kind of a little arrangement. These flowers came from one of the cut-aparts that was next to this clock. And then, not quite sure where some of these flowers have come from. There's a lot of different scraps as we've worked through the project. And so I just want to put a couple up here so that this clock isn't floating in space so much. I also have a little bird over here. I'm not sure about him, so I think we'll just hold him to the side for a moment. So let's put these flowers on. Try to get them straight here. And put these on. Finally, we'll put this little clock on. I guess it's a sundial, not a clock. So I'm going to just set this part aside to dry, and we can work on the front panel, and once it's dry we'll come back and add the frames on it. So these are the frames that I cut from the for the first panel, I should say, that I cut from the two 8x8 pieces. I just kept about an inch down here at the bottom, then went around the roses, and then I didn't want to have squared off edges, so I think I've come in about these straight lines here about 1 3/4 in, but then kind of around the flowers that I wanted to, and I think up here at the top, this is about 1 1/8 because I wanted to get the whole lily of the valley, it says up here, and I didn't want to chop off the valley. So that's about 1 1/8 up here at the top, and just kind of wiggled around the edges here. once I did that, I have to have a way to join this, and it's a little flimsy. So what I decided to do was to take a piece of cream cardstock and just basically build a support piece that will go behind here. You can see it covers that up. And this support piece is, it's still 7.5 inches tall by 12 inches wide. The top, I wanted to hold these edges back a little bit from the size of the pattern paper, so that's why this top is 1 1/16. You recall that the top on this pattern paper frame is 1 1/8. So basically I'm just holding all of these dimensions back 1/16 of an inch. So the top is 1 1/16. The sides, which were 1 3/4 on the pattern paper, are 1 11/16. That's 1/16 less than 3/4. The bottom, which was 1 inch on the pattern paper, is 15/16, 1/16 less than 1 inch. So that's how I cut this paper. Now before we attach these on here, I'll give you, we're going to do one more step that for all the other ones that only have a single piece of paper in the front, we're holding this step until the end. But in order to put the star book together, we have some hinge pieces that are going to go eventually on all of the front panel. And I think that this one would look better if this piece gets sandwiched in between the white background and this foreground. I just think that will look better. So let's talk about these pieces that go on the sides. They're cut 1 5/8 inch wide, and then they're scored at 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. So that gives you, I don't know if you can see that there's a little, it's like a little U channel here that's formed by that 1/8 inch piece. See if I can find something to hold behind it, you can see it. That angle right there, I think you can kind of see it there. So there's a little 1/8 inch channel, because when all of these corners come together, it's kind of thick, and I don't want to see all of that. So I've made this so that it gets covered up. So when we attach these to our page, we're going to, in this case, we're going to put it on the front of this backing piece here. So I'm going to remove the score tape. These fold towards the back, and just because I can see to line it up better this way, I'm flipping this over, and I want to just keep back from that folded score line so that it can easily fold. So I've got this one put on this side, and now I'm going to turn around and do the same thing on this side. Just holding it back from that score line. And then lining it up just, like I said, just shy of that score line, so this will be able to fold nicely around that corner. Now I did cut these pieces, as you can see, a little bit long, just so that I wouldn't have to worry about getting them exactly right, so I'll just come now and trim them off. Here's one side, and we'll get the other side here. Okay. So now we're going to put our pattern paper on, and what I want to do is I'm just making sure that I am folding these back so that that 1/8 inch score channel is hidden behind there. So this is just the 12-inch dimension right here. And I put some score tape on both the back of the panels and on here. You can see there's a strip that was on the reverse side of this joining hinge. Got another short strip here, a couple on the top and bottom of each one of these. So I'm going to, I think before I do that, I'm just going to hit this crease here just with a little bit of frayed burlap that I have on here, just so it's not stark creamy looking. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do the bottom first. This is kind of like adding the frames onto the die cut pieces that we've been doing, where at the center we hold it back just a smidge, just a hair from that score. I'm going to get things lined up down here. And pull that side one away. And these two top ones. Shift this around. And then come back at the end and pull this final strip of backing off of here. And we'll come and burnish that in a second. And then we're going to do the same thing over on this side. Start with removing the tape at the bottom. Staying a little bit shy of that center. Remove the tape from the support and these two tape backings up here. Come in here and do a little burnishing. So there's our front panel. I'll just set this aside for a second and we'll see if our trellis is dry. Yes, that was just the right amount of time. So now we can add our frames to our trellis. We're getting very practiced at this by now, but still take your time. You know, I find that usually what happens is I mess up when I start feeling overconfident, like I've done this 1,000 times before, and that's when I make an error. So take your time, enjoy the process. That's why we do these things. And this hidden one behind here. And we'll do this same thing over on this side. Now obviously these decorations that we put on this trellis, we could have done that same kind of thing with any of the die cut frames that we had. You can embellish to your heart's content. Okay, let's give this a burnish. On the back side here. And now let's just have a little preview of what this one's going to look like. And then with that frame coming in front. And it may be that something else gets added. We'll see during finishing touches if we want to have anything more. So that is this page done.